Champions Mojo is part of the CG Sports Network.
Welcome to the award-winning Champions Mojo, hosted by two world record-holding athletes and health, life, and leadership coaches. Be inspired as you listen to Conversations with Champions. And now, your hosts, Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I am co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Kelly. It's great to see you today.
It's great to see you. And today we have the privilege of talking with Desmond Dunham, or as he's known to many, Coach Dez. Let's say hi to him before we introduce him. Hey, Coach Dez.
Hi, Coach.
Hey, how are you all? Thanks for having me.
Great. We're thrilled. We're thrilled to have you. So, Coach Desmond Dunham is a nationally renowned running coach, mentor, Under Armour Coach Ambassador, and the author of the newly released book, Running Against the Odds, which is an inspirational book that shares how Desmond became the man of his household at age 11, how finding cross-country running helped him change the trajectory of his own life, how a race put him in the back of an ambulance, and how traveling to South Africa, he felt himself stepping into his own life and power and much more. I can't wait, Maria. What else can you tell us about Coach Dez?
Yes, Coach Dez is a nationally acclaimed track and field and cross-country coach who's been teaching, mentoring, and coaching in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for over 2 decades. He's also the founder of Kids Elite Sports, which offers summer sports camp and youth sports training. This camp has impacted nearly 800 youngsters and has hired and trained nearly 500 high school and college camp counselors. And today we're going to talk with him about his journey to becoming one of the best coaches in America, his new book, and how he became the best version of himself, and how we can too. So Coach Dez, welcome to Champions Mojo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Oh, and Kelly, I just picked up your book. And so I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to read it. Yes.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Thank you
It's
so
a great
much.
book. I can highly recommend it.
And
you wanna
Maria
keep it by your bed.
Maria has a book coming out in December called Do Tough. So we got 3 authors here.
All right. I love it.
That'll be a next one. Yeah. So, well, welcome. And so let's start off right there with your book, which I can't wait to get. I have not had the chance to read it yet because literally it just came out. So I'm looking forward to that. But tell us why you wanted to share your story in this book, Running Against the Odds.
Yeah, it was, well, at first it was an arduous task, as I'm sure you can account to. It took about 1.5 years, but, I really thought that it was important for me to expand my reach in terms of just inspiring others. And I'll never forget sharing a story. It was one of my challenges to a group of my runners. And when we finished up, eyes were, pupils were dilated, and they were just locked in, and you could just see that they were super inspired and motivated. And one of the runners stuck around afterwards. And the first thing she said was, Coach Dunham, you need to write a book one day. There's so many people that need to hear these stories. And I realized that it was those challenging moments that I shared that were relatable in some form or fashion to my student athletes. And so I really wanted to take the time. I made the decision about 8 years ago. So I always had it on the shelf that I wanted to accomplish it. And then when the pandemic hit, we were kind of twiddling our thumbs the first 6 months. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll write this book in about 6 months. And it took 1 year and 6 months. And a lot of 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, lonely sessions, writing sessions. I'm sure you all can relate to that. And so, I just want to expand my reach, and if I can, change someone else's life and inspire someone else's life, through writing a book, I would be elated to be able to connect with others. And I also would love to just leave my legacy for my family and my community, and just, my grandmother always said, make sure you leave the place better than you found it. And I want to leave this world better than I found it. And I'm hoping this book can add some value to that.
That's great. I got to hear the answer to the question that Kelly opened with in her interview about what happened when you were 11 and your young life.
Yeah. So, it was, really unfortunate with some of the things that I dealt with at an early age. My dad was a Vietnam vet, and he was responsible for removing wounded soldiers, and unfortunately, some soldiers that were killed in the line of duty. And so when he returned home, he just wasn't the same. He suffered PTSD, and quite often a lot of our veterans do not receive the mental health treatment that's needed. They fight for our country, and they give us our freedom and ensure that we can have just some simple things in life that we often take for granted. And so, unfortunately, my dad brought these demons home with him, and he started to pick up the bottle, and then he started to abuse alcohol and became an alcoholic. And that led to a really tumultuous relationship between he and my mother. And my sister and I witnessed a lot of abuse. We witnessed, just the nerve-wracking feeling of coming into our home at times. And when your home is supposed to be this safe haven and this place of comfort, it was quite the opposite at times. And so my mother finally divorced him. My sister and I, we were ready to move out at 8 and 9 years old because it was just too much for us to handle and to wrap our heads around. But my mother finally divorced him when I was 11 years old. And I'll never forget when my uncle put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Hey, you're gonna have to step up. You're the man of the house." And that wasn't something I was prepared for. And although I knew that was better for us long term, it really sunk in once my uncle shared those words with me. And it was time to try to do some things to protect my house and my mother and my sister. And I have a couple of stories and running against the odds of what that experience was like. And so it definitely pushed me towards that manhood a lot sooner than I had hoped and anticipated.
Is that where running came into your life to get you away from that? Tell us about how running saved you.
Yeah. So if we back up just a little bit more, school was always just, it was great for me in my initial years of school. I finally remember kindergarten, first grade, but then something, abrupt happened where I began to be pulled out of my classes, where I was dealing with a speech impediment. And during that time, it wasn't, always accepted by your peers, and you were different, and they let me know that I was different. And then also, I dealt with having dyslexia. And so that was another hurdle. So school wasn't as fun for me. And it wasn't because I didn't want it to be fun. It was because these disabilities were not properly identified. And unfortunately, your peers can be very harsh at times. And so fast forward, I ended up being cut from my elementary basketball team. Then I was cut again from my middle school basketball team. I was even cut from cross country in middle school. And so I had a really sour taste in my mouth. Now, I thought I was going to be the next Michael Jordan, but I was the only one who thought that. So, and so I was told that if I wanted to play high school ball, that I had to go out for either cross country or football. And I was about 120 pounds. So I wasn't going out for anyone's football team. I went out for cross country, and it was late in the summer, right upon when the season was about to begin. And my high school coach, we called him Chief, said to me, "Hey, it's late. If you can make it through this practice today, we'll keep you. If not, you'll have to come back out next season. So it was a tryout. It was a one-day tryout. I ended up having to run 8 miles. Now, it was at a pedestrian pace. Just for the record, but somehow I was able to just will my way through. And, it was the tough times that I had prior to, with being cut from other sports, my home life and everything else that I just harnessed and put into that tryout. And who would have known that tryout changed the entire trajectory of my entire life. My high school coach became a father figure. I mean, he was right what I needed at the time. I was not making the best decisions. And again, school was not fun for me. So I wasn't, as focused as I needed to be. And so it was the brotherhood, the culture, and it was also this sick feeling that I had that it was one of the most exhilarating and rewarding experiences that I had in that first practice and also in that first week. And I knew it was something different about running at that time that didn't, it was much of a more robust experience than playing basketball or baseball. And I love those sports, but it was just those intrinsic rewards that I got from it. And from that point on, I just wanted more and more. I wanted to feel that reward. And I didn't know at the time, but of course, you get your endorphins going, your serotonin going, and all the other good hormones going. And it became this outlet for me to be at practice or to be running on my own from that day on.
That's a beautiful description of discovering running and what it can do for you.
Yeah.
I'm curious about when you realized that you had a special gift for inspiring others, especially youngsters.
Yeah, definitely. It started when I was in college, when I took a few of my residents. I was a RA, resident assistant, so I was over a floor. And we had to do projects. So one of the projects, we went to a local elementary school and about 5 of us, and we tutored at the school. And we started tutoring on a weekly basis, and then it became daily. Then towards the end of the school year, I had a conversation with the principal, and she informed me that they were actually losing their funding. And she was really saddened by the news. Tears were streaming down her face. And I'm thinking to myself, what can I do that can, continue to help, this school? It was in the Howard University community. And so I felt some type of ownership to it. So fast forward a year later, I met a young lady who became my right-hand person. She was over all the operations. She later became my wife, Jamie. And so a year after that date, we had over 100 students that were volunteering as tutors, as special help to teachers. We were running their entire foreign language departments, music department. And so when I say that this was a feeling that I had never, ever experienced before, connecting with my community, connecting with my youth, it began to change my life. And so I knew it was something special about this tutorial mentorship experience. And I thought I was going to medical school. I had all my pre-med requirements. I had done biomedical research. And I had a conversation with my mother after I took a gap year to figure out what was it I wanted to do. I started teaching physics and chemistry at a local high school, and that was supposed to be for a 1-year stint. Towards the end of the school year, I had a conversation with my mother, and she was so supportive to say, look, I don't care what you do. I want you to love it. I want you to have the passion for it. And I want you to be the best at whatever you do. And I truly heard those words. All right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to make a living with it, and I'm going to have to make sure that I'm the best at whatever I do. And that was my best, not, by anyone else's standards or comparing to anyone else, but staying in my lane to be the best that I could be. And I'm thankful that my mother was supportive of that.
Gosh, what a great mother. That's really beautiful. Because
what a great story.
Yeah, great story. And, a lot of parents will just say, oh, be a doctor, be a lawyer. And our family was be a doctor, which was definitely not it was terrible. Yeah. We had the doctor wall literally in our house. So if you were a doctor, you're on the wall, and, it's like definitely, so it's wonderful. In fact, we just did last week, I think it's coming out the week before, we just did the last show on finding your purpose and living it. And that's really gives you that power. So this is like you came into this kind of your purpose through finding your own passion for running. Yes. And, all of us here on the podcast, we're all runners, but tell us how this book can relate to both runners and non-runners.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do want to say for the record, I have a love-hate relationship with running.
I was going to ask you, do you still run? Do you still run?
I run about 40-ish miles a week now.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So I mean, it still plays a significant role for me in my life where it just allows me to, it allows me to have a much higher output, my energy level. It also sheds layers and layers of stress. Sometimes I come home, I'm a little cranky, and my wife says, you need to go out for a run. Because I am a different person after I can get that run in. I put my headphones on, I have my various playlists, it depends on what type of mood I'm in, from, my hip hop to my Coldplay to Sade, or, so I mix it up a little bit, and I just feel like a different person so I do my best thinking when I'm running. So I hats off to this, relationship that I have with running. And I always tell my athletes, when I used to run over 100 miles a week, when I was competing competitively in college, I would always say to them, I only wanted to really do about 30 to 40 of those miles. And the other 60 to 70 was surely driven by my goals. You have your goal. A goal without a plan is only a wish, and you have to put that plan in action. And so, but yeah, back to your question. One thing about the book, it has a great cadence to it, and there's a lot of stories within the book that becomes lessons, that becomes very, very relatable and applicable to seeing yourself in other adverse situations. There's a real humanitarian side of the book that I think that everyone can relate to, whether they're a runner or not. Running is used as a metaphor in a lot of situations. We all, again, want to live this life where, we're safe, we're comfortable, we don't have any friction, but you all know that that's the farthest from the truth. And, what running parallels is that, you're going to have some great runs, and you're going to also have some runs. They're going to be, they're going to be painful, and you're not going to want to do it, but you're going to have to figure it out. And that's the other side of life, that, where do you land after you trip up, after you fall, after you fail? Do you fail backwards or do you fail forward? And I think that there's just so many life lessons that are associated with running, and also, your aerobic sports in general. And so it's always, great to have, that some type of outlet that's going to get your juices and hormones flowing. And so, yes.
So there seems to be a important humanitarian sort of element to your life and to your, I don't know if it's in the book as well, is like you want to serve, apparently. Tell me the importance of that for everybody and how you learned that.
So I always say that if you're not making someone else's life better, you're really not living, your full calling in life. And unfortunately, we're taught me in life, and it's really about we. Just this circle of life that, everything centers around people, and you're happiest when you are around the right people, or you're helping the right people. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. And, you have to ask yourself, are you transferring positive energy into the universe to others? Sometimes you got to audit your circle in life and ask yourself, do you have the right people around you that you're going to live out your passion and purpose in life, and they're going to be supportive of that? After 25 years in the world of coaching and education, I feel like I've learned a lot, but there's so many lessons that we learn in just everyday life that becomes, essential for happier living. And if you don't want to pass that on to someone else, I mean, to be honest, shame on you, because we're here to help others, and we're here to be a community. And, I just think that should be the calling for every human being.
And is that like running, where sometimes it's hard and sometimes it feels great? Or is
Exactly.
it, and did you learn that from someone, or did you just figure, hey, it really, like you told that beautiful story about helping people in your community. Did you just discover then, hey, this feels good to do good?
Yeah, so I'm on the other end of the spectrum with some things with my dad, and even writing this book, it really has uncovered some things for myself, that there were some things that were still there. And so I knew what it felt like to not have a parent that you could count on, that you can trust, that showed you some things that, that were so premature in life. And so I've always had that kind of part and harbor within me. And somehow, I wanted to take that and to flip it, either I can harness, and hold on to this pain and make life, more painful for others, because that's what I witnessed and learned, or I can take it and say that, unfortunately, thanks, Dad, because you showed me, how I don't want to ever treat someone. And that if I knew it was painful for me, I want to be as far away from that as possible in terms of making other people feel that way. So I feel like I've super compensated for the things that I had gone through. And now I am, I want to be known as one of the most dependable people. I want to be known as someone you can count on, someone that inspires. It's just, I'm addicted to it. It's such a great feeling. I don't know how. This is why you all do what you do, because I'm sure you relate to some of the same things. And again, that's one reason I'm excited to be connecting with you all today, helping people live out their purpose and passion, and inspire folks to get through hard moments, which we all are going to go through. No human being is immune to any problems or issues. And if there is someone, I would love to meet them. And it's up to us to help lift people up so that they can, just experience happiness in life.
Gosh, I think that's so powerful to know. I don't know what we would call that, Coach, but I feel like there are anti-heroes in our life. Like your dad, you watched him and you said, I don't want to be like that. I want to go this other way. Me going into Division I head coach, I didn't know if I could be a Division I head coach, but I did a graduate assistantship under a D1 head coach who was doing everything wrong, in my opinion. And I said, you know what, if that coach can do it, I can do it. Like, so it's kind of like, we often ask people who was a big influence in your lives, and you think maybe it's somebody positive, but we do have these negative influencers which change the trajectory of our life. So I love that story as just something different. And you had a different upbringing, which could you tell us what it was like growing up in Gary, Indiana, and how that shaped you?
Yeah, I mean, Gary was a tale of two cities. I mean, I absolutely loved my childhood. Often played games. We called them sandlot games. We used to come up with our own teams and tournaments. I mean, we were super serious about it. And so I was very well connected with, just all the guys in the neighborhood. And I also played Little League Baseball, where one of my best friends' dad was the coach of that team. And so it was just a lot of fond memories. But at the same time, there was a great migration in the 60s and before to Gary for the steel industry. And then the steel industry started to decline in the 80s. And as a result of that, Gary became the homicide capital of the US. And so we had a lot of things happening around us, very high, drug rate, very high unemployment, educational systems began to decline. There was a lot of redlining and rezoning. So property values, also went down. And then, homicides also began to, move up. Gangs were moving up. And so, again, running at the right time kept me on a very narrow path. And so, and I'm also very fortunate too, where my family, outside of my dad, played a significant role. I mean, we do family reunions now, and we'll easily have 200 family members, at a family reunion. That's on my dad's side as well as my mother's side. And
then Gary?
Well, we move it around. So I've hosted in DC, but Gary is the staple area. We have family in Chicago, Detroit, Alabama, and then so if you live in a city or state, you're eligible to host, but you have to come with it. You have to make sure everything is buttoned up really tightly, and that that you know what you're doing in terms of putting that agenda together and making sure everyone has a great time. And then I also just and I failed to mention this earlier, but my mother was just, played such a significant role. And I think that with the combination of my high school coach and then also seeing the hard work and sacrifices that my mother made, she often would work 24 to 28-hour shifts at work. She would literally sleep in the break room during her break time just so she can pick up extra shifts for my sister and I, just to make sure we had everything we needed. And so seeing the sacrifices that she made, when she dropped me off in college, she said, "You're not coming back home." And I knew what she meant by that I can love Gary, I can give back to Gary, which I do, but I didn't need to physically be there because there were too many distractions, in the city. So yeah, Gary is a tale of two cities for me. I still love it to this day. I'm very thankful for my childhood in many ways, but so unfortunate that some other of my friends didn't get the same opportunities. They didn't find that sport or that father figure, and life changed for them, for the worse. And those are things that I always, just kind of reflect on how blessed I am and how can I, help the next person.
Tell us about South Africa.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to do an exchange program to South Africa when I was in my 5th year of undergrad. So I did the 5-year special for undergrad, and I remember going to South Africa where I was a bit down and out. I was a bit depressed, and one of the reasons I had just finished about 3 months, maybe 4 months prior. I had competed at our conference championships, and competing at the conference championships, 2 weeks before the championships, I was diagnosed with bronchitis. Oh, no. And the doctor, told me, your season is over. This is a bad case of bronchitis. You can really harm yourself. I didn't carry the news back to my coach, of course. He thought I just had a bad cold. Took a few days off, and I just kind of dibbled and dabbled, and it was pretty challenging to try to navigate. But by that time, I was the captain of the team. I was the #1 runner. I have been putting in hundreds and hundreds of weekly mileage. And so fast forward to the actual championship meet. It didn't work out how I had planned. I was coming in as a top seed. I ended up just struggling the last couple of miles. And, there's a scene in the book about this. And I was just concerned about my teammates. I wanted to just give them the best chance and best opportunity. I didn't want to let them down. I collapsed at the line. Next thing you know, I'm in the back of an ambulance. And I was later diagnosed as developing pneumonia. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I ended up in the back of an ambulance. And so needless to say that this is where how I finished my college career. I finished my high school career with a stress fracture. And then now I finishing my college career with catching pneumonia. And so I became, really, depressed as a result of one, my running career was pretty much over. Two, I didn't, get those honors that I was shooting for. And I just felt like, the world was against me at that. It was really lonely at the time. And it wasn't until I got to South Africa that, I stepped foot into the Soweto townships where apartheid had just recently ended. And, seeing homes that were 300, 400 square feet, there were, holes in the ceiling. If you wanted to use the restroom, you had to travel a quarter of a mile to use the restroom. All the roads were dirt and gravel. Even the floors in the homes were dirt and gravel. And it was one of the most humbling experiences. And one thing I really appreciated was that the community somehow still rallied around apartheid to keep this spirit alive, and here it was, I'm upset over, a finish, when I was ill, didn't really give myself the benefit of the doubt. And that's where, sometimes you got to cut it off about results. And it's all about, did I actually did I empty the tank? And I know that for a fact that I emptied the tank. And it was just hard for me to deal with. But then when I get to South Africa, in the Soweto townships, there are kids that would never or will never get an opportunity to join an organized team or to do daily running because of how unsafe it was, or because they didn't have the shoes or the proper resources or apparel. And it really opened up my eyes to say, Des, this is not about you. This is about, you got to open up your eyes and realize your blessings. And it really just took me to a whole different, mindset and playing field once I just saw a different part of the world that was going through something that was so unfair and barbaric. And so it unfortunately made me have so much more of an appreciation for myself, for others, and also just to see the bigger picture of what we're really called to do as teachers, as mentors, as people. That if we don't do it, then who else will? And we can't look at on the news and say, that's unfortunate. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. There's really no in between. And there's a lot of safe players out there. And you got to ask yourself, what have you done to change someone else's life, whether it's on a daily or weekly or monthly basis? And I think that's super important to ask yourself that question.
That was so inspiring.
Very, very powerful. So in interest of your time, we want to respect your time. We have 2 more questions. The last question is always the same, and I'll let Maria ask that. What would you like your readers to take away from your book, if there were a couple of things?
I would love for the readers just to take away some of the life lessons. Each chapter there's a theme to each chapter with a lesson, and I think that one that sticks out and stands out the most is that adversity. It's a great thing sometimes, and we never want to go through it, but we have to go through it. And sometimes we also have to let our kids go through it as well. So if you're that parent and you're a helicopter parent and you're always, over your kid and not letting your kid fall, I think it's super important that, that we learn to take risk and also not be afraid to take those risks. Because taking that risk, you fail sometimes, you fail often, but you can also fail forward. There's a story that I tell about this ribbon. I thought in high school, I thought I was going to get in the top 10. I ended up 75th, got this ribbon. Well, I'm going to cut the story a bit here, but I took that ribbon, put it next to my light switch, and every day I turned that light switch on, and that ribbon reminded me that I needed to work harder, that I needed to sacrifice more. And it's that ribbon that led me to garnering a college, running scholarship. It wasn't the trophies that I received. It wasn't the medals, because when I was receiving the trophies and medals, I thought I was at maximum output. I thought I was doing everything I can do. And then when I got that ribbon from failing, one of my goals. So I put that ribbon next to my light switch, and it reminded me of this sick and eerie feeling of failing. And then I really started to ask myself, am I maximizing, my efforts? And I realized that, some of those days I could have practiced a little harder. I could have gotten up a little early and did a little extra. I could have done my core. And I think that's so important that you have to keep asking yourself, what else could you do that's, within reason, of course, that you can really maximize your abilities and talents. And that's the fortunate thing, that we have these tools inside of us, and we have this ability inside of us. We just sometimes have to get things to ignite us, to bring it out of us. And I think, I know that in running against the odds, it, will remind you of some of those things that we all have in us. We're human beings, we're resilient. We are, we're going to be okay from a lot of failures, but we just have to be ready to fight that fight, when the sun comes up the next day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What you learn from your failures is so much more important than the trophies. Okay, the last question is, what else? And is there anything else that we haven't asked that's important to say?
So, well, I think that I'm going to be writing a second and a third book. I don't know when that's going to happen, but just even writing this first book, I started Kids Elite Sports because I thought that it was becoming a really intense with specialization at a very early age with a lot of our youth. And don't get me wrong, there's 2% population that they're born with it, they have a knack for it. But we just want to make sure that we're teaching our kids the proper life lessons through sports. And we've kind of gotten away from that a bit. I believe in results. I'm super competitive, but there's just things that come before you start talking about results. And I just think that championships are built as a result of effort. Championships are built as a byproduct of sheer dedication of committing yourself, of making sacrifices, being a great team player, being coachable. And so, Kids Elite Sports started with 10 kids 8 years ago with this diversification over specialization model. It also, has a lot of life lessons that are built into our curriculum during the summer camp. And now we service, close to 1,000 kids at 4 different sites during the summer. And, the kids are eating this up because this is where they want to be. They want to be competitive. They want to, appreciate sports, but it has to be rolled out the right way. And you have to make sure our kids are in the right environment that's going to keep pushing them to be, the best version of themselves and learn how to just, stick with something, even if it gets hard at times. And so that second book is going to be a parent's guide. And I do parents clinics now. I do coaching clinics, and I just want to help to teach our parents and coaches, how do you put together this model program where your kid is going to want to do sports for the rest of their entire life. Like you, Maria, you're breaking records and you just started, when you were in your 40s, and Kelly is still, just out here killing it. And we want all of our kids to, and even in adults, we want to remind everyone, you can find something that can be your passion, your outlet, that can give you a lot of fuel, so that it can allow you to have maximum output in everything else that you do. And so I can't wait for this second book. I really want to have, just a staple in the, parent and coaching community, just to help the guide to make sure that our kids have the right seeds planted at an early age.
That's going to be a great book. So this first one, we really all need to get our hands on it, and running against the odds sounds fantastic. I can't wait. And it's just been awesome. Learned so much, and
Thanks, Coach.
what a joy to be with you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're changing lives, and we're glad to be a part of the journey.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Take care.
It's now time for the takeaways. Maria, you and I have heard the takeaways are the best part of the show.
That's right, Kelly, because the takeaways are curated information, which is what we give to our clients when we coach them.
If you would like to take your performance to the next level in health, life, or leadership, go to our website and schedule your free 30-minute consultation.
Yes, just click on our coaching page and book there. We're looking forward to bringing out the champion in you.
And now, the takeaways.
So Maria, Coach Desmond Dunham, Coach Dez, as we know, what a fabulous, amazing humanitarian. Just such a great interview. I hope people listen to the entire show, and he's got a great book coming out. It's out, brand newly out, Running Against the Odds. So what is your first takeaway?
Well, there's so much good stuff in there. His story is amazing. People should get and read the book. But I liked one of the things that he said that that just really impressed me is, he was a college graduate, is, thinking about medical school, could have gone to medical school. And, he starts teaching in high school, and he's, he likes it and he's good at it. And I think, it's tempting to do the thing that looks shiny and sort of, being a doctor. So, as we just talked about in the show, there's the doctor wall in our family, and so elevated in a lot of families and in the culture. But he decided to do what he really wanted to do, what he knew he would be good at, and the thing that he knew could impact people. And I just think that's so important. There's not a lot of glory in teaching and coaching sometimes. And he did that because it was the right thing. And now he's been able to impact so many thousands of kids. So that really inspired me to follow your passion, even if it leads someplace that doesn't seem, shiny, I guess.
Yes, because the joy of every day waking up, being passionate about what you're doing is way worth tons of money.
Right.
It's everything. Right. My first takeaway is, I know it's very simple, but a lot of people have goals without plans. So I loved his statement of, a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Right.
And so it is really important. And I think I might have referenced this before, but there's the statement of, if you want to own a boat, are you subscribed to a boating channel? Do you know about boats? Do you belong to a boating club? Do you know, what is your plan for how to get a boat
license, right?
So you need to, or whatever it is. I don't even know why I picked a boat, but just,
yeah, please don't mention that.
No, I don't want a boat.
I
am not wanting a boat, but my point is something simple.
Right.
You've got to have a plan.
Right.
And so I really loved that. What was your
it's
second
okay.
one?
It's okay to have a wish. I mean, I think it's fun
you can
to
have
think
a
about
wish,
things.
but it's
right. But don't call it a goal. Right.
Yeah. And it's probably not going to come into fruition.
Right.
If you don't have a plan.
So I liked, this is something we've talked about the show many, many times, but he called it failing forward, which is just, you learn so much more, of course, from your failures, but the story of him coming in 75th when he thought he was going to come in top 10 or top 5 at an event, and how that inspired him to change the way he worked out. And so it's really good to think about that. As he was talking, I was thinking about the times that I have failed, and it just, they kind of kick you in the butt and make you, if you're serious, then it makes you better. So I love the idea of elevating failure as a way to become better and reminding ourselves, we're going to have failures. I think I told you I had a really bad workout the other day, and it's just like, I felt so discouraged by it, but I thought, okay, what can I learn from it? What is my weakness that I need to work on here? Anyway, so I love failing forward.
I think the theme of his whole life has been taking failures and taking something bad and turning it into something good. And that brings me to my second takeaway, which is this anti-influencer. So someone that is doing something so opposite that it inspires you to go the other way.
That's such a great one.
That was his dad.
Yeah.
And so I think we see that, and I'm going to say this, I can say it now, rest in peace, Mom, but seeing my mother be this full-time, hands-on, doing everything for us kids made me shy away from motherhood. Like, I don't want that life. That for me was, why I'm child-free by choice, my own beautiful, loving mother. It's crazy. But that was an anti-influencer for me being a mother. It was also for me going into coaching. I got to serve under a coach that was doing things that were so egregious and awful that I'm like, oh my gosh, if this guy can be a head coach, I can be a head coach. So I think that's taking, opening your eyes to things that you see that are wrong that you want to change, maybe in yourself, maybe in others, maybe in a profession. But that was my second takeaway. And there's so much. I can't wait to get the book.
Read the book, watch the show.
Yeah, it's just wonderful to be able to do this with you every week. Love you
so much, Kelly. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Palace and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Champions Mojo.